back to the Daily Grind. Thanks for checking out the channel. Make sure to hit subscribe if you're new and hit thumbs up if you're not a baby back pickle biting bitch boy, cause you know what time it is. It's full time.
MMA.
Gunnar Nelson versus Darren Till is set for UFC London on St. Patrick's Day for the main event, and this makes perfect sense. Now, whenever I say set, it's not official by the UFC. The UFC has not announced this fight, but Pundit Arena did say the fight is set, but they're just going off of a tweet which I will bring up that John Kavanagh said they've agreed to fight Darren Till in the main event of UFC London. But if you guys remember, I was actually the first one to report on this fight a week ago. Hey, I gotta give myself a pat on the back. I'm just a motherfucking toilet cleaner. Shout out to my motherfucking haters and trolls. I see you out there. But with that being said, I was the first to report on this whenever I said the Bisping versus Belfort retirement fight, and Darren Till versus Gunnar Nelson is rumored for UFC London. Now, at that point, we had heard about Bisping versus Belfort. It wasn't officially announced, and we saw that Michael Bisping has turned down that fight. He said he wants nothing to do with Vitor Belfort. But at that point, Darren Till versus Gunnar Nelson wasn't announced by anybody or even rumored. But it made perfect sense. I saw Darren Till and Gunnar Nelson were going back and forth on Twitter saying that they would fight, you know, making the match for themselves. Darren Till's been looking for a fight, and then I took the date and the holiday into consideration. UFC London, St. Patrick's Day, Gunnar Nelson, Darren Till made perfect sense. Now the fight is actually starting to come to fruition, as John Kavanagh has taken to Twitter and said, so the UFC has offered Gunnar Nelson versus Darren Till main event for UFC London. We've agreed, so hoping to hear confirmation soon. How do you guys like that matchup? I'm reminded of the Thatch fight. Big, strong striker, but I think Till is a tough challenge. One way to find out. Now, this is very, very interesting because we've just heard Darren Till say that he was willing to wait for the Wonderboy Thompson fight, and that he thinks it's 100% happening. Now, what could happen here is the UFC could have offered the fight to Gunnar Nelson and maybe offered a contract to Wonderboy. Wonderboy initially wasn't going to accept, but maybe with more time he is willing to accept. So if Wonderboy has agreed to fight Darren Till after UFC London, after the UFC sent out this contract, we could actually have this fight not happen. So even though this fight's looking like it's going to come to fruition, and it's Coach Kavanagh has said they've agreed to the fight, it is not 100% UFC official as a whistle. So I'm going to keep my eyes on this situation and we'll see what happens. But if the fight does happen, it makes perfect sense. Main event, UFC London, St. Patrick's Day. Conor McGregor is 100% for sure going to be in attendance in the crowd. He might scale the fence. He might beat up a referee this time instead of just put... I'm just saying, Conor McGregor's 100% going to be in attendance, and he's going to be all jacked up on Mountain Dew. You've got Artem Lobov versus Bruce Leroy Alex Caceres on the card. Conor McGregor is usually always in attendance for Artem Lobov's fight, on top of another teammate, Gunnar Nelson, possibly fighting in the main event versus fucking Darren Till, a guy that a lot of people are picking to surpass Conor McGregor's superstardom. So this just seems like a perfect fight to make, and Coach Kavanagh, Conor McGregor's coach, has agreed to the fight. So unless the UFC or Darren Till's team for any reason decides to wait on Wonderboy, which I really hope that's not the case at this point. I would rather see Gunnar Nelson, Darren Till, London main event on St. Patrick's Day. We can fight Wonderboy later. Wonderboy can, you know, Wonderboy didn't even want this fight at first. So hopefully that doesn't throw a monkey wrench into this whole fight. But with that being said, it is what it is. Let the full-time family know what you think about Gunnar Nelson versus Darren Till, St. Patrick's Day, UFC London, Artem Lobov, Bruce Leroy, Conor McGregor in the audience. It's gonna be fucking shenanigans. You already know. Those are all 4 dope fights, but I'm just saying, you've got to note the fact that something's liable to happen as well at that event. And with that being said, I mean, we saw how that affects the ratings. Whenever Conor McGregor scaled the cage at Bellator and it was on tape delay, they still had like over 1 million views on tape delay when Conor McGregor scaled the cage. Now, do we know Conor McGregor's gonna scale the cage? Yes. No, I'm just fucking around. We don't. I'm just saying. He's going to be jacked up on Mountain Dew, and I can't wait. Let the full-time family know what you think in the comments, and he might be extra amped up if he gets stripped of his title right before that. Whew. Or right after that. I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm out.
Bye, Felicia.